And we're live. Episode 44, 40K Fireside podcast. We are continuing the live stream kind of format that we've got going on here. And what better opportunity to use this than everyone's favorite bit of clickbait, the 40K faction tier list. How do you stack up against your peers? Is your army OP or not? Should you be winning every single game? We're going to find out. But I think that we're going to see that the meta's in a pretty good spot in general, and it's going to be a pretty tough call to split up these factions a little bit, isn't it, Vic?
I think that's the hot take of this meta, is where things are actually pretty close to each other. So we're going to try and distribute things as best as we can, but it's going to be tricky to differentiate. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting discussion around our choices.
Yeah. And before I forget, because I'm terrible at this, if you're a new listener, and because I guess our normal tier list videos get a bunch of people that have never listened before, and if you're just starting listening, you're listening to the 40K Fireside podcast. We appreciate any feedback, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know if we've really missed the mark on anything. But if this is your first time listening, then and you don't know Vic and myself, I'm David Gaylard, and you're with Vic Vijay. We're the couple of the founders of Team Ignite. And we've been playing 40K for, I guess, quite a few years now. Vic a little bit longer than myself, but Vic was, I guess, last year ranked 2 ITC.
Yep.
I was ranked 4. We've both won some super majors, been around the block. We've played WTC, played it all. So, this is a podcast where we just discuss our ideas. We're pretty open about it, and largely it's just a reflection of Vic and I's thinking and the team as well, Team Ignite, because obviously we chatted with the guys beforehand about the tier list, kind of what their thoughts were, because there's been a lot of changes with the balanced data slate, hasn't there, Vic? It's not as if just one thing has moved up or down, or two things have moved up and down. Actually, things have really gotten a lot closer, and a lot of stuff moves up. A lot of stuff has moved up because a lot of stuff has come down. So here we go. Let's dive right into it. The most OP faction. What do you think it is, Vic?
Most OP. Starting at the top, I think it's got to be Necrons. Is it Necrons?
Yeah. I think it's a pretty safe bet, and I think the theme that we're going to go for today is safe bets. Now, I immediately have realized that I haven't explained the tier faction.
Yep, so let's do it.
Let's go into that first. Now, previously when we did the tier faction, a bit of context. The meta was full of Wraith Knights and Genestealer cults, so there were some factions that were pretty horrifically bad as well. So I think, Drakari was down there as well, I think, in the last tier one. So instead of kind of breaking it into S, A, B, C, D, E, and F, we kind of go a bit of a different way, kind of give it a bit more real-life context. And so the top of the tier is hope they're a new player. And that's when your opponent's army is so strong that you basically have to hope it's their first tournament to have a chance at beating them. And I think Wraith Knights definitely fell into that category previously. So just below that, we've got factions that you're going to be constantly seeing winning super majors. And then below that, we've got winning GTs. Now, it's not to say that a winning GT list can't potentially win a super major. That's definitely not the case. There's a bit of flex in there. But we wouldn't expect a bottom GT winning to be beating a winning super majors faction in the finals, for example. Then you've got winning RTTs, so winning tournaments that are 20 players and whatnot like that. And then we swap to the negatives where we've got losing local stored games, and then we've got the really the bottoms is losing the kitchen table games, and then we've got absolutely nothing under there. So kind of get rid of nothing as well. Delete row, professional.
Perfect. We don't need that.
Nothing and nothing anymore. So I guess let's jump straight into it. Vic, Necrons.
Oh, Necrons are interesting. You could probably give a bit of perspective into this, Dave, because you've been testing Necrons quite a bit.
Yeah, so I guess we haven't done the podcast on it yet, but I took Necrons to the ITT in Coventry. It was like a 500-player team event. I think it was the second largest team event in the world, outside of perhaps one of the French ones. And we won that with the Team Ignite. I was playing Necrons, and we were... I think we did pretty good as a team overall. I don't think it was as comprehensive as the last time we won it. Primarily because actually I was playing Necrons on a build that I actually don't think was actually that good. Despite that, though, Necrons in a really powerful spot. There's actually a really wide build diversity in Necrons as well. You've got Hypercrypt, you've got Canoptic Court, and then Awakened Dynasty, which I still think is really good. And then you've got within Hypercrypt, you've got a bunch of builds. You've got Monolith, no Monolith. You've got Wraiths, no Wraiths. Seras, no Seras, how many immortals. So I think that's where a bit of Necron strength comes from too. The build diversity is quite strong, so they're actually somewhat hard to build against because you've got a pretty diverse range of defensive profiles to tick against. You've got Wraiths, or you've got Catan, or you've got AOC Immortals, or maybe even a Monolith in singles. So to caveat that as well, we're going to be primarily talking about singles related here as well. So yeah, Necron's really strong. They were obviously strong beforehand, and the only nerf they got was to their devastating wound stratagem, which seems like every army gets every once in a while. Not sure that one keeps getting through. But yeah, Games Workshop obviously didn't decide to nerf them because they were a new codex, and we saw that with AdMech as well. So if they were already pretty strong before, and Eldari and CSM getting a bit of the nerf bat, and Marines as well, then I think it's a pretty safe bet that they are the army to beat currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting even breaking down our categories further and considering the implications of what criteria needed to put armies in a position where they're going to win super majors.
Yep.
Because we often go to super majors and we try and compete for victory at them. And when it comes down to faction choice, you often look across the board. You think about what is the potential top of the meta, and then you think a little bit wider than that. And do I have a game with my faction across the board that's not so uphill that I'm just hoping for luck to get through it? And I think that's the big differentiating factors between the armies that you plan to win super majors with and you plan to win GTs with.
Yep.
Super majors are often stacked with some of the best players playing the best factions, and you're going to hit them consistently across the last half of a tournament. I think Necrons are one of the factions at the moment who have, across a couple, maybe 2 or 3 different builds, like you mentioned, good matchups across the board. Not saying it's perfect. It's not broken. It's not Wraith Knight level where you're like auto winning against everyone unless they get hyper lucky. It's more that you have all the tools, that it's an uphill battle against most of the meta for them to beat you. And then you have a good chance against that last little bit of the meta. And I think Necrons are pretty good for that. Do you think there's much difference, Dave, between the different builds, or do you think they're all equally strong?
Yeah, man, it's a good question. Love it or hate it, and people think Catans are too cheap and stuff like that. I hate playing with Catans, to be honest with you, man. They are just so slow.
6 inches.
Smooth 6 inches, OC4. I mean, yeah, I personally find Catan really hard to use because feels like such a centerpiece of your army that if you misplace it one turn, then the whole game just unravels for how potentially good they could be. I still kind of like the Awakened Dynasty build, but obviously the Hypercrypt one is by far the most popular one at the moment. I think the Hypercrypt is definitely the most consistent, that's for sure, because it does rely on Catans to a certain degree, and then the ability to move and place them makes them, a lot more reliable than previously before. I found that that's probably the only dynasty I would play Catans in, I think, because the real strength is if you, say, ideally go second, then you pick up at the bottom of your opponent's turn, and then you rapid ingress them back on your opponent's turn too. And that can be really powerful for the Catans. So if you are playing and you're up against Hypercrypt, that's definitely something to watch out for. I use that all the time. Rapid ingress away, so that instead of just moving 6 inches up the board, you're now 9 inches away. So you move 6, and then you've got a 3-inch charge. And oftentimes the Katana outloaded with some pretty relevant shooting as well. So if you can put them on a position where your opponent hasn't got enough to take them down, then they're going to be able to kind of deal good damage on that flank. So yeah, I think Necrons are definitely
I would
good.
say, though, I think Necrons are going to have one of the highest meta representations in this upcoming meta.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to play them.
Yep.
And I think everyone who's going to tournaments, when you're talking about discussion, is, can I kill a Catan?
Yep.
And there are very specific profiles that are slightly more effective into Catan. And if you just lean in a little bit more and the whole meta leans in a little bit more, does that keep Necrons off the top? Potentially. There's always a risk to being the most popular faction, especially when you're not broken. You're just strong.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Necrons might even hit that like 25-30% play rate. Like they are super popular. I mean, some of their model ranges are absolutely gorgeous as well. And, you're painting models that 18 Wraiths isn't like super easy to assemble, but Catans are really popular and are really easy to buy and assemble and are really strong as well. So I think that's definitely a big part of the allure. And a lot of people have existing Necron models that are, perfectly competitive. So the Necron Codex actually got a bunch of things that are perfectly competitive. So a lot of people with existing model ranges are going to be able to pick that up, transition it, buy a few Catans, and have a pretty good or very good Necron list after that. So yeah, but you're right. They've got a big bullseye on their back because
I think we've put them in the right place, but I think Necrons are going to underperform in this upcoming meta compared
mhm.
to the expectations of what people are thinking.
I can see a lot of people, a lot of the very top players, not playing Necrons, which I think will definitely impact it. You know, I look after the balanced data slate. Like, for example, I'm not interested in playing them. I don't think anyone on our team, for example, was interested in playing them. So it's that I think in the UK is going to be a little bit contextual as well.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, should we move on? What else is
Yeah,
in
let's do it.
what else is in the top tier? We were chatting with the team, and you know, I don't think you can go that far, but someone was saying the old Space Marines are pretty solid at the moment, actually.
This one's worth a
Brian,
debate, I think. Worth a bit of
yeah,
debate.
we saw Ennis Wilson playing Black Templars Ironstorm at the International, and that was definitely not a good matchup for my list. This army has a serious amount of output and is actually quite good into Necrons, and I think it's a really good example of someone building a list that is good against the biggest threat in the meta right now. You know, you've got Oath of Moments, and then the combination of Gladiator Reapers and Gladiator Lancers. Between that and Mercy's Weakness, you've actually got something that covers the entire Necron defensive range somehow.
Mm.
You know, you've got I forget if it's the I think it's the Reaper with the 12-shot devastating wound weapon with the sustain 2. Then you have twin linked and reroll as well. So you can reroll into devastating wounds with Oath of Moments and Mercy's Weakness, and that actually is super good against Catan. One of the perfect profiles is Strength 601. So that's really good against them. Then you've got that's also fantastic against Wraiths and Immortals as well. So yeah, I think the Marines are in a pretty good spot, despite copping some nerfs as well, right, Vic?
Yeah. The thing, so when I first looked at the balanced data slate, I tried to look at it as a wider picture. What archetype is going to be effective into the top of the meta? And the very first thing I think a lot of us said was a heavy vehicle skew
Hmm.
is going to work out well here because in order to deal with Necrons, you're probably not skewing heavily into vehicle anti-tank. And then against most of the other stuff, it's MSU, infantry, medium-sized infantry. Do people have enough anti-tank to deal with a vehicle skew? I think probably not generally across the meta,
Mm-hmm.
but there are very few armies that can do a good vehicle skew. And I think about the only one that can is probably Marines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they do a very good vehicle skew.
Yeah, I mean they lost a little bit of the scoring, so there's that element to it. It's more of a pure output type of list. So if
Is
you're
that with
that,
the Inceptors? The
yeah, the
point change?
Inceptors. I guess the Scouts went up a little bit as well. So they've lost a bit of their dynamic play, but their output is relative to the field has actually increased. I would say, particularly because the Ironstorm Mercy's Weakness strat is actually just so strong. Obviously, that wasn't nerfed at all, and the big gun platforms weren't really nerfed that much. You know, Centurion. The Centurions were nerfed a little bit in points. So you know, you've got big vehicle platforms that still do a ton of damage. I actually lost to Matthias Bellman and the World Champs playing a really similar list to that, and basically just ran through my Incarn like it was no problem. So really good. It's going to be interesting to see how they play. I think they're probably a little bit terrain dependent, and depends how open the firing lines are. But if you're playing it maybe a meta that has more open terrain, the Ironstorm build is definitely one to watch out for, I think.
The thing is, I think that's not their only good build, though, because
Right?
it's kind of hard in this meta, especially with World Eaters getting knocked down a little bit, to find a true pressure army, kind of a
Yeah.
melee pressure. And I think Marines have two of them. They have
Mhm.
both Blood Angels and Black Templars, who I think are both very good in this particular meta. Maybe not perfect. I think maybe they were better in the previous meta than they are
Mhm.
now. But Blood Angels got a nice buff, lots of points decreases, etc. And Black Templars are still excellent. They didn't get enough of a points nerf.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to see all three of those archetypes, including the vehicle skew, do very, very well.
Yep.
And I think it's quite a clever pick to put that up there, right up in that top tier there, Dave.
Yeah, and you could even play both, Vic. You could go Hullbrick and the Land Raider Redeemer, get a bit of combat, get a bit of vehicle skew.
Oh yeah, we both got
Pretty
taken
good.
out by that, didn't we?
Oh, we did
Oh, we
actually.
both got destroyed by that little
Oh, man.
flamestorm thingy.
Yeah. It's like Templar
Brutal.
salamanders thing, right?
Yep.
I hate that these days.
Brutal. Brutal. That's our
To-
Nottingham feedback. That didn't go well.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. In case you missed the Nottingham episode, it's because we didn't make one. We both lost to the same player. So yeah, that's quite funny. Right, talking about pressure builds, a build that didn't actually get nerfed that much.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say the next one in the winning super majors category. I'm not sure if this fits ahead of Marines or not. So let's see what it is. I'm gonna say Death Guard. I
Oh,
think they were really good beforehand.
yep.
Liam went 7-1 at World Champs with them, and to be honest with you, they didn't get nerfed that much, did they, Vic?
I am not so hot on Death Guard like you.
Ooh.
I think they're very good. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. But a lot of their power, I think, was coming from people not quite understanding their rules.
Yeah.
There was a big spike where people were like, oh my God, I didn't realize suddenly being -1 ballistic skill is going to be so bad.
Mhm.
Or, whoa, suddenly I'm -1 toughness and you're wounding me on 2s with these random autocannons, etc.
Yeah.
And minus like a million AP.
Mhm.
Now that I've played Death Guard a few times and you understand the output profiles and movement profiles, I think it's a lot easier to deal with them. I'm not sure that
Oof.
they're going to continue to be quite as effective as they have been.
Hmm.
But maybe they are up there. Maybe you're
I
right.
think it's really interesting though. I think Death Guard have actually got one of the better games into Necrons, perhaps.
Mhm.
So they've got a bunch of anti-infantry platforms. They have the double grenade still, which is obviously still really relevant against Catan. It's not often that you would be able to quadruple grenade something, right? So the grenade strat is not a huge nerf. Plague Burst Crawlers went up a little bit, sure, but you can supplement those out with different vehicle platforms. The Brigands are still the same, off the top of my head. The
I
Plague
think you
Marines
can
went up
only
a little bit.
take 2.
2 Brigands?
Yes.
So you can only take 2 Brigands, but the core package of the army detachment ability, which I think is probably one of the best detachment abilities in the game, right? -1 toughness and then basically -1 savers. Absolutely bonkers strong. And then the package of that with some of the characters that didn't get nerfed, so the lethal hits on 5+ biologists is absolutely bonkers good for 50 points and still has an insanely good infantry weapon. All those kind of things just mean that I think they're a super efficient army in general. And they've always got lots of different tactical play because you're effectively playing a 3 to 4 Rhino type list with 40 dudes inside with shooting back into it and good army faction rules. Granted, though, your
Mhm.
army is very mappable. It's very linear. It's very face up. So you're moving 8 from your Rhino and then you're doing something, right? So that's the big downside to them in general, isn't it, Vic?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nerfs are more than they look on paper, Dave, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So the grenade one is like that little nerf to output that
Yep.
removes a certain level of threat. But then with only 2 brigands, Nurgling's now not doing actions and points increases on some of the units that you were taking. I think it does add up. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it might just dip Death Guard just under that level where they're quite as powerful.
Yeah.
But they're right up there. I
I'm
absolutely agree.
happy. I'm happy to put it as the winning GT. Actually,
I
now that I
think they
think about it,
are in that category. They're one of the
the top
most
though.
powerful kind of factions.
Yeah, sure. I'm completely happy with that. Let's go with one of my favorites, I guess.
Let's do it.
Where do you think this one deserves to be, Vic?
Is it
Honest opinion. Imperial Guard.
Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum?
Where are we? There we go.
Like, it, it's a tough one because if I look across the board at the potential games that you're likely to play in a super major,
Mhm.
I think Astra Militarum have one of the best setup of matchups across the board. They have one of the widest positive number of matchups.
Mhm.
Sure, I'm not sure they necessarily smash every army, but for singles play, I think they're on the winning side of many, many games.
Mhm.
Admittedly, you need to be a very good player, as you would with any of these factions, to take it to a super major win. They're not head and shoulders above the power level of everything else. But I would argue that people will be much less prepared for managing Astra Militarum or even have access to the tools to manage them compared to being able to manage Necrons.
Yep.
And I'd argue they're potentially the strongest army in the game at the moment for singles.
Yep.
But it's close. There's really very little in it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Astra is one of those. Astra's had a weird player base for a long time, especially when it comes to the singles environment. particularly because there are it's I guess, have we seen an army like that as well previously, where the faction win rate really doesn't represent at all just how powerful the army is.
Correct.
We played the stat check and the vibe check online team event. This is pre-balanced data slate, where I was playing Astra Militarum, and I was just bonking people. The army was so much fun, really, really powerful, and almost zero bad matchups. I think one of my worst losses was to Anthony Vanella playing World Eaters, going second, and me making some play mistakes, and I think that was an 8-12 or something.
Yeah, you're still
Um,
almost there.
yeah, so the the problem with Astras at the moment, or Imperial Guard, is that it might struggle into some profiles. So one of the things that I really need with Astra is you need a really good read on the meta, because
Mm.
your army is essentially an open book of different output profiles that you want to have effectively, right? So are you taking bolters on your stuff, or are you taking flamers? Are you taking multi-melters on your tank commanders? Are you taking melters on your Cassian? What are the loadouts there? And I think it can take a little bit, and this is just me speaking, it can take a little bit of time to get the data in for exactly what you need there. What are the last 150 points are you taking? Are you taking another unit to move block? Are you taking a Hellhound for ignore cover? What's the story there? So, or are you taking maybe another tank commander or one of the cheaper Lehman Russ hulls just to have more direct shooting and a straight up stat check, like offense, defense check? So, yeah, the benefit that Astra has, though, is that there are very, very few players that play it extremely well. And so when you're thinking about winning, or, when you're thinking about your list for a tournament, it goes very much under the radar, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I read Reddit. I read
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer competitive Reddit, and I love going through comments.
Oh, dear.
One, one recurring trend I keep seeing is, how could they nerf Manticores and give them a 30-point increase? Astra Militarum is already so bad. Now they're just completely dead.
Yeah.
GW's balancing approach is awful, etc., etc. I think if they hadn't put the 30 points onto the Manticore, we would be in disaster territory right now,
Yes.
because I think Astra Militarum would be clearly the strongest army in the game.
Yep.
I think they've saved it with that little change there.
Yes.
And the fact that like the wider community can't understand that shows just how under the radar the power of Astra Militarum is.
For sure.
And I think we're going to create a lot of discussion with this particular thing, Dave, because I put Astra Militarum above Necrons there, and
Oof.
that would be the ultimate in controversial takes, but I think it's a very accurate one.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Obviously, our opinion is quite shaped by the players that we have playing Astra
Correct.
Militarum as well. We've got myself and Nassim Hussein who played it a lot, and obviously I've played it a ton as well. So that kind of does shape our opinions. But it is very, every time you play, Astra Militarum really have so many good things. The only thing that Astra Militarum lacks is wound rerolls and maybe direct shooting on hit rerolls. But that's pretty good considering they get a great indirect package. They have cheap troops. They're fast. They can do tactical. They have good output across the board. They have a really good go first win ratio. So there's not much that they don't have when you think about it. But
They have every profile because they also do mortal wounds very well. They
yes,
have ways of increasing AP to very high amounts. So
yep.
excellent, excellent
And
army.
I'm still playing 2 Manticores. 2 Manticores, 3 Basilisk in my list. So I
Yeah.
played a list for the 2 team tournaments I mentioned previously, and basically all I did was just swapped out a Manticore for a Basilisk. It was 90 points over. Swapped out a Manticore for a Basilisk. Got rid of my Gaunt's Ghost, and then added a Primary Psyker in there as well. So still really strong. I can't wait to get playing some Guard. And you just think about Guard versus Space Marines or Necrons or Death Guard. You're playing with Basilisks and Manticores. The Space Marine vehicle heavy build might be a bit hard to chew through because of AOC, and maybe something like a Land Raider Redeemer could be an issue. But you know, you're playing a gun line to a certain extent, but with mobile infantry up front.
Mhm.
So you can go toe to toe with these armies that are really trying to go for a huge offensive output. Definitely.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting where we rank everything up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Space Marines are very interesting because I think they have a good game both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you were just going to a tournament and only those three armies are there, you could probably put your money on Space Marines doing very well.
Yep.
But across a wider tournament, maybe you'd argue that Space Marines are more likely to hit their counter
Yeah.
than Necrons and Astra Militarum.
And precisely right. What are the chances that you're going to run into someone that's ticked exactly for your build? With Astra Militarum, it's almost 0% because they don't actually theoretically have a hard counter, right? Whereas Space Marines, if you're playing vehicle spam, you might go second against someone else playing that. Or, if you're playing Necrons against someone and you run into someone like Innes Wilson's list, then yeah, that's going to be a problem. So yeah, it's got very, very few bad matchups, which is a great position to be in.
I'd maybe slide Astra Militarum to the middle of those.
Ooh.
And if you can. Yeah,
Yes.
and just keep it like that. And I think Necrons and Astra Militarum are equal there at the top.
For sure. There we go. Hot takes. And then let's get moving on. So we're kind of breaking up into the middle of the pack here. And I guess for context, the middle of the pack there's not much in between, is there, Vic, really?
But we can be ruthless. Come on, give me Drukhari. Give me some elves.
You want to go Drukhari next? Where do you think this one
Drukhari is one of them. Like, I feel you could write a dissertation on Drukhari because how phenomenal that they can get such an incredible update, because their rule set is so phenomenal. Mm-hmm. They have some stratagems which are incredibly powerful on units that can punch way above their weight in melee. And somehow this has landed in the exact meta, which is absolutely awful for them. They're atrocious into the top of the meta because they're what did I say? They're caught between a 3-inch deep strike and a manticore, and then when they try and run away, there's a fight first just behind them, and that's the whole top of the meta. Probably the only one they have a decent matchup into the Marines. They can give that a really good game, I think. But against the other 3 armies you see on the screen, it's tough. And that's Death Guard, Astra Militarum, and Necrons. And there's more to come, which is extremely challenging for Drukhari.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that maybe if you're playing Necrons too, Katana are just an absolute nightmare for Drukhari as well, right? Half damage, toughness 11 is, if your 10-man Incubi unit doesn't one-tap the Catan, then they just sweep profile you back and basically wipe you up for 3.
I mean, so I think there's a lot of list building that people need to do with Drukhari. I don't think they're certainly not weak. I also don't think they're top of the meta. I think they very firmly sit in a strong army. Sure. But in terms of list building, the immediate thing everyone's going to jump to is taking as much melee as possible. I do personally think that Drukhari is a very hybrid army that has a few hammer units, but they're still primarily based on movement, shooting, and scoring points. And when people take away maybe 1 Incubi unit or Lilith and her witches and go down to just 2 or 3 hammers and then start taking in a bit more Kabalite warriors, a bit more Beastmasters, a bit more shooting, they'll probably find that they'll get more success into the current meta than what maybe initial testing is showing. So I think where you've put them is probably correct, to be honest.
I was thinking maybe bottom of winning GTs, but we'll see where it fleshes it out. We can revisit it.
We've got so many armies to go. I think winning RTTs is incorrect, but I think as they stand, it's a push to even win GTs, especially if they're slightly large GTs.
Yeah, I think you're going to run into a lot of matchups where you can be the better player than your opponent by even a significant margin, but the fact is that your offensive profiles and your fragility won't line up well against some of the armies that naturally are taking things that they want to take anyway.
Exactly. You're going to hit them even in small GTs.
Yep, for sure. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. Chaos Demons. Man.
Chaos Demons, all yours, Dave.
Oh, man, this is tough. So I have to confess, I actually haven't played a game of Chaos Demons post the Balanced Dataslate because I guess we had this 500-player team event that I was practicing for. But, Chaos Demons they're in a better spot, obviously, than they were previously. And a part of that is also the fact that they're not just a soup option faction now, which is nice. But, they've got some things going for them. And that is, 3-inch deep strike with flamers, still pretty good. And then all the big boys just came down a lot in price. So I'm not sure particularly about the builds, but, something around, Haidar from Team Iceland was playing Blood Crusher spam, kind of Fiend spam. I don't think I've seen him play just the big Monster Mash spam, but those builds have certainly gotten a lot better. If you're playing 5 big ones, then you've just got 150 point or nearly 200 point discount on your army, which gives you all that room for chaff, right? Like that can almost be 2.5 units of flamers, for example. So they're in a better spot. The problem is that their army-wide rules are just quite weak, and if we're looking at some of these bigger factions like Necrons and Space Marines, and even Death Guard, I think as well, fights first with Death Guard is a huge problem for Chaos Demons, particularly on the big 10-man bricks, and grenades is a huge problem for them. But just looking at Necrons and Space Marines, then you're going to be going into some armies that either have huge durability or melee output with Catans, or just huge damage output that will flat out kill one of the big guys in a turn. Either that's Mercy's weakness or Hullbrick, Black Templars maybe. So I think they're still going to be struggling a bit. I would like to see them do well, because I think that demons are a lot more of the funner kind of Imperial Knight version of just playing big knights, because they're a lot more dynamic. So I would like to see them do well, but I don't feel like they're going to do that great into some of the top of the meta. And
What
I
are
guess
they doing? Are they winning RTTs or losing local store?
I think winning RTTs is a good spot for them. I don't know if we'll get to any factions that will be losing local store, but we'll have to find out, because I guess there are some weaker ones still to
There
come.
are some weaker ones for sure.
Yeah. So I'll put demons there, but I hope I'm proven wrong. In teams, I think they've got a bit more of an interesting build to them.
Yeah, I like this little multiple Ren Masters and Blood Crusher thing. It's okay. It has some answers to the top of the meta, which is very interesting. But yeah, they're pushing. They're really pushing for a place up there.
There we go.
Shall I pick one? Let's go for one I like. Should we go for Eldari?
Yes, of course. Oh, so interesting. What a great pick.
Eldari are fascinating at the moment, because Eldari have taken a number of nerfs. We're constantly getting nerfed, and it's like a question: are they dead yet? And my opinion is, I don't think they're dead yet.
No.
I think they have transitioned now to the fun builds. Now we're at the point we were at the end of 9th, where we had those MSU like combination armies where you have to combine everything together to actually get your output into there. And there are so many other options beyond that top broken layer that are now getting explored. And the big thing is, because Phantasm has changed and is no longer utterly busted, it's a little bit random, still excellent. I think it's not going to feel quite as oppressive for people to play against.
Yeah.
I hope. I think a lot of people will have answers to deal with it, and you're only going to do very well at tournaments if you actually play the Eldar list very well. Glorious. And you know what's even better, Dave? I think if you play it well, you can win tournaments.
Yep.
So I'm super hyped.
They're definitely really powerful. Like I played a game a couple of nights ago into Craft Worlds, and the Phantasm nerf was really big, but I think players quickly adopt to the new playstyle of Phantasm. It's no longer the thing that you use to just move your Wraith Guard forward. It's no longer the thing that maybe you use to just play way more aggressively. It's more the thing that you use once you've overextended to fire and fade back effectively, right? So there's lots of things you can still do with, assuming you only Phantasm 1 inch, because you've got a lot of things that just run on 25 mil bases, right? So, and maybe the really good players are going to say, assume I Phantasm 1 inch, but if I roll higher, then I could do something else more aggressively, right? So all the positioning nuances like that are super interesting. It goes to say that their units didn't really get any more expensive, right? Apart from the Night Spinner. And then the Fate dice, you've got to be a little more stingy with them for sure. So that's interesting. But stuff like Falcons, Shadow Spectres, Warp Spiders, Fuegan.
Keep going, man.
Still, right?
Keep going. There's so many units that are still good there. And the best thing is they're all aspect warriors. Yes.
And they're actually pretty hard to kill. 3 up, 5 up cover, Fate dice is really good.
They're cheeky.
And even the Avatar of Cain is not bad, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a good little skew to have in your list, but maybe just going all on the floor MSU is the better way.
There's options. I mean, there's still an argument to run a Night Spinner or two. There's still an argument to run D-Cannons in your list. Maybe that could be the alternative. And then there's about 5 different aspect warriors that are all excellent. And arguably, you could say Striking Scorpions and Dark Reapers are good. So we're up to 7 different aspect warriors that are excellent.
Just what I was going to say. Striking Scorpions, pretty good actually as well.
Yeah, decent.
So I think they're in a really good spot. I personally think they're more of the higher end of the winning GT type of list, I think.
I think so. I think so. And I think we will see them winning GTs, because I think a number of players who maybe have dropped off Eldari but are big Eldari fans. There's a lot of really good Germans who play Eldari. Will probably jump back onto it now that it's more of a build that you'd associate with Eldari players. I know that I'm certainly going to be trying them a bit more.
And they have the benefit of the fact that they have such a diverse range of outputs as well, right? So you can really sit back, not be a target in the meta, and just have your list really ticked for those top end lists. and then just skill your way through maybe matchups that are a bit more 50-50, right?
Possibly. The problem is that the defensive profiles of the units that you're likely to take now are very one dimensional in
Yep.
Eldari.
Hmm.
And I think there's no way around it that the defensive profiles are not correct for this meta.
Mm.
What you're relying on is A, player skill, but also B, a high amount of units that are still a little bit too good on their data sheet relative to their points
Hmm.
in order to win games. I think this meta could be a bit more friendly to Eldari and it would have been good for them. But I think the fact that it's hostile is put Eldari in a perfect place to be a very interesting faction in the meta.
Definitely. Still super good. We're pumped to see how they do. What have we got up next? Here's another one that you've played a bit of, Vic. What about Grey Knights?
Oh, my boys, the
What are we
Silver
thinking?
Boys. I think Grey Knights are fascinating as well
Hmm.
because I think Grey Knights were good before, but
Okay.
and I think Grey Knights are good into almost all of the meta here, except for a heavy vehicle skew and Astra Militarum.
Yeah.
I think those two are problems. But for example, I think they destroy Drukhari. They absolutely shred the Eldari MSU builds.
Hmm.
Like, that is the single worst game you can get. Where, let's say you try and make something durable, take the Avatar of Cain, the librarians blow him up.
Yeah.
You try and go heavy MSU, they have a 3-inch deep strike behind you. I think Necrons struggle against Grey Knights as well.
Interesting.
I think they have the correct profiles, especially now that they have extremely easy access to ignore modifiers and damage characteristics and all that stuff.
Nice.
They can go straight through a Catan with just one of their bricks now.
Hmm.
And the 3-inch deep strike allows you to remove a lot of resources out of Hypercrypt. But the Manticores are a massive issue, and they continue to shred the Grey Knights through the game. So
Yep.
I think Grey Knights are probably weirdly, I
Are
think
they
they're
buff
on
Drakari?
par. I think they're on par with Eldari.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oof.
think I think power level wise in this meta, I think they have a good game into almost the entire meta.
Really?
Yeah,
Mm.
I saw the changes, and I not the Dread Knights. I don't think the Dread Knights are good.
Mm.
And I think as people lean into running the Dread Knights because of their updated gun, they're just going to run into problems.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
this same build that was being used before is better in this meta than it was in the previous meta. You've lost the Wraith Guard, you've lost the CSM builds,
Hmm.
which were a nightmare, and now you've
No
got
night spitters.
only Astra Militarum to deal with, and I don't think it's going to be that popular, at least
Hmm.
not by good players.
I could see them kind of struggling into Death Guard. I would be interested to see how they do against Necrons because the Librarian did go up in points, right? So
Yeah, not by much though.
I guess
It's
the ignore
like,
modifiers is quite strong.
yeah, it's a tough one. Maybe you're right about the Death Guard. It's I keep them at the top of winning RTTs. I think that's probably correct.
We'll revisit them. We can rehash it over once it's done. One thing that someone in our team plays a lot, Mr. Brian Sight, Orcs. And look, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. This army's terrible. Just kidding. This army's quite good. However, I think this army suffers from a very similar problem to Astra Militarum as well. I think it's quite nuanced to play the fight phase quite well as well. And Orcs are definitely an army that you need to have your macro strategy correct in terms of when you need to push, where you need to put your large resources and your large assets for offensive and defensive purposes. So you need to have a really good grasp of how the game needs to flow. And in addition to that, you need to be quite nuanced in the fight phase, which lends Orcs into being quite difficult to play, I think. So because of that, they're kind of underrepresented in their strength, so to speak. Now,
Orcs.
what so, man, there's a lot
Orcs.
of build diversity in Orcs as well. So, the reason the reason Vic is sighing a little bit is because we constantly talk about Orcs and evaluate them in our team because Brian loves them, of course. So, they're in an interesting spot. Could I see Orcs winning a super major? I think that they would struggle to get through top end of Necrons, Astra, and Space Marines. I think Orcs are one and I think Death Guard potentially are really good against Orcs as well, if I'm being honest. So I don't I don't see it having an amazing matchup against the top armies, which I think ultimately leaves them slightly gate kept. Yes, that's I guess an evaluation. Yeah. What do you think, Vic?
I really I mean, orcs are like on paper they should be really really good, and I think the inclusion of flash kits into armies now it has really helped orcs. They're much scarier with a legitimate shooting threat.
Yeah.
But just like when I think about the macro strategy involved, I, I don't see like even the MSU Eldari build. I know if I talk to Brian will be like, "Oh yeah, that's no problem. Like Orcs should win that every time." Maybe Brian wins that every time, but I
Yeah.
don't think Orcs should win that every time.
Hmm.
All the profiles. Imagine there's two D cannons right behind a wall.
Yep.
That the Orc army is it's impossible for them to win the game.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think there are too many things which are a problem.
Yeah.
And I think the better your opponents get, the more that they're able to deal with the way orcs flow through the game.
Yep. I think one
Um,
of the big part of orcs flowing is the warg turn as well, right? Like I
mhm.
watched Liam play that brilliantly. Liam went first, which I think means you need to warg at the beginning of the battle round, right? So what that means is you have to call the warg in your opponent's turn
Yeah.
basically before they do their movement, and then as soon as you call the warg, your opponent knows exactly like what they have to do, right? Just
Mhm.
run away from your army and move block, and that can be potentially devastating. So that's kind of like I think if orcs were really popular and people really knew how to play against them, then that would be really detrimental to them. Whereas a lot of these armies have like absolute raw power behind them. Like, they have efficient data sheets, good army rules, really just like straightforward power plays.
Mhm.
But I thought orcs, not a lot of people play against really good orc players to begin with, which is a strength for your army. It's definitely the case with Astra Militarum, right?
Mhm.
Not a lot of really top end players play them in the meta, so that's just a benefit. So I think orcs, they if we're evaluating things fairly, that's a reasonable consideration. If you can really put in the prep and practice for orcs, then you'll be definitely rewarded more than you maybe Necrons, for example, because your opponents will have a lot of experience playing against Necrons.
Yeah. I would say in terms of this tier list though, there's an argument to drop them down a tier, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think looking at Drakarian Grey Knights in the tier below just makes me question should orcs be in a tier above them.
Yes. I think if we're going for a global perspective on what will be the most accurate representation globally,
Kitchen
we would
table.
we would I think orcs would be somewhere here potentially.
And I would argue that are the demons still in the same category?
Losing local store.
Yeah, I
That's
think
fair.
that's where they are.
Okay, we've reshaped it on the fly. Nice. Let's get back to one that you are intimately familiar with, Vic.
Hmm.
What about the old Chaos Space Marines?
Oh,
Arguably the most changed faction after Bell's Data Slate, right?
they had some widespread changes, didn't they? The on paper, when I looked at it on paper between Eldari and CSM,
Hmm.
I thought Eldari doesn't have a layer to go to underneath. Losing
Hmm.
Phantasm, less Fate dice, that's it. Game over
Yeah.
for the Eldari. There's no build left. And I thought CSM, they've got loads of other units that they can swing straight to. I'd argue both factions can swing through to their layer of units below,
Hmm.
but I'd say Eldari do it better, potentially.
Yes.
I think CSM are still very good, and potentially they could be the second army in the meta that can play a very good vehicle skew.
Hmm.
Because, Abaddon, full rerolls, you play a big vehicle skew in the middle. They're not as durable as Space Marines, but the
Hmm.
output is higher.
Yeah. Space Marines
Um,
obviously have Armor of Contempt, which really stacks well with the
Mhm.
vehicles.
They have a 1 CP armor of contempt, which makes a
Hmm.
huge difference rather than the 2 for Chaos Space Marines. So I'm not sure where Chaos Space Marines sit. I know, Liam's going to test a little bit of that. I'm sure he's going to find something brilliant for it, and we're all going to make it S tier armies. So as it stands, I am going to put CSM. Oh,
I
if I
could
was
see
just going
them
to.
in the winning RTT category.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
definitely there. It's a question of are they in the winning GTs, and I don't think we have enough information yet to know that.
Top of the pack in winning RTTs, perhaps?
Top of the pack, almost because of their history, their legacy is keeping them
Yes.
up there.
It's true.
It may be lower, it may be higher. It's really really hard to gauge.
Yeah. I think for now that I'm thinking about it too, I think Drakari is going to have a huge player surge bonus. So
Mhm.
I suspect, and you probably agree, Vic, that we will see them win GTs, especially early on. I think because a
Mhm.
huge influx of players will play them. But I think ultimately this is probably where they'll sit.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's too easy to counter them. It's natural counters at the top of the meta.
Yep. What about Chaos Knights? I don't know much about this army, but I'm putting them straight in winning RTTs. um, you know, they didn't change a lot, and I guess fair to say some of their top meta opponents, heavily nerfed, and those are matchups that were just straight up unwinnable. Your opponent has 10 Wraithguard, game over. Let's just go home. So they really benefit in that sense, but Death Guard is still really strong, and Death Guard are really good into them. Space Marine vehicle builds are going to absolutely shred Chaos
Yeah,
Knights
no
for a living.
chance.
Necron builds, I think, are going to do pretty well against Chaos Knights in general. I had it down as a draw against Nathan Roberts' Chaos Knights for the Coventry RTT, but I think that if you're going to make a run with Chaos Knights, you're going to need to beat Necrons a couple of times, and you might just run into situations where the Catan pass saves, and if they get one good turn of their Catan passing saves and they take out one more knight than they should, then you kind of don't really have a foothold in the game, despite having access to lots of OC. So I think that would be a problem with them. I don't see them being able to make a run that would win a GT or win a Super Major, ultimately.
I agree with you. And I think Chaos Knights are one of those armies that is going to be overrated by some metas and some teams. I did the stat check tier list, which they're updating today. So I'd recommend anyone check their team's tier list.
Cool.
And the last time we did it, they put Chaos Knights super high. Nathan, Typhus, and that's a completely different experience to what I have when I see the results that Chaos Knights put out. I think Chaos Knights are not great.
Yep.
And I think they're in singles. I think they're extremely easily counted.
Yep.
I could see maybe a value in teams, but even then, I think they underperform across the board in teams.
I think they struggle to push big differentials because their secondary, your opponent's secondary game plan is very simple, right? Just table, hold some primary, deploy teleport homes, and bring it down. I think Necrons are actually in teams for sure. Are a better first defender than Chaos Knights. I mean, and that's not a big glorious statement because obviously Necrons are one of the best armies in the game. But I was first defender for our team as well, and I think that it just has a bit of a lower ceiling than CK does. Maybe if my list was better, I wouldn't have been first defender though. So I'm not sure how relevant that statement is.
How about Sisters?
Sisters, yeah. Oof. Do they get nerfed, Vic?
Sisters kind of did, but kind of didn't. They actually got nerfed if you just looked at the balanced data slate, because the Triumph can only give out 2 Acts of Fate in an aura, rather than unlimited, which is one of the most powerful mechanics in the previous meta. They also got a points increase in the Arc of Flagellants and the Exorcist. For an army without such a high win rate, it seemed a little bit harsh. But what they got was a core rules change where now if you fight on death, your entire unit counts as having been destroyed. So say you kill all 10 of my Arc of Flagellants, all 10 of them count as being dead when they start fighting on death. So the entire unit gets +1 to hit and wound when they fight on death.
Nice.
And Repentia got a points decrease. And Repentia are one of the best uses of that +1 to hit and wound in the fight on death. For a very cheap unit, you get 10 of them for 110 points.
Nice.
And they're hitting with 6 -2 damage attacks that naturally reroll to hit. So I have a feeling the Sisters have some obvious powerful list builds that they can make now. That everyone's going to go to. They're going to do 20 to 30 Arc of Flagellants, 10 to 20 Repentia, get the Volgons and triple Castigator, and then one of the combo units that you had before. People were starting to run 2 of them because they were so powerful with unlimited Acts of Fate. Now, even just having one, you can just like double 6 your multi-melter. Perfect. You put 2 damage and kill a vehicle. I think the natural build that people go to Sisters is very strong in both teams and singles. And I'd rate them up there, exactly where you've put them, winning GT level. Very strong army.
Stronger than Eldari? That's an interesting question, isn't it?
Do they beat Eldari? I think potentially yes. I think they have perfect profiles. You have so much MSU with the Seraphim, etc. And Eldari struggle against Sisters. They did in the previous meta, in my opinion, especially the MSU builds, because you can push straight into them. And I think that's going to be even more apparent now. So I'd argue they might be above Eldari.
Sure, I can see that. What do you rate the Sisters Necron matchup? I think it's quite an interesting one, isn't it?
I think Necrons have raw power, but Sisters have perfect profiles for the Necron matchup. Because I think the Castigators lines up into things like Destroyers, etc. very well. The Arc of Flagellants line up into Catan very, very well. Admittedly, and actually, Immortals don't kill Arc of Flagellants that quickly. I think it's kind of like, they kill a chunk, but they're not really getting any value, especially if they get killed straight afterwards.
Hmm.
So I think it's quite a
18
close game.
wraiths.
18 rates is tough.
That's one of the more, I guess. It's isn't it funny how 18 wraiths is much less popular now?
Yeah, well,
Uh,
you don't have the immortals behind it, right? But I think
yeah,
Canoptech
exactly right.
Court is quite strong still.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're right. Yeah, I think the 18 wraith build would do quite well against sisters. Like they would struggle to get through that much.
I do think the
But
Castigators are quite good in that
yeah,
matchup.
for sure.
But you're right. I think that's an uphill matchup for the sisters. I
Yeah.
think now that Repentia are decent, I think the Repentia profile lines up very well into rates at 6 minus 2/2,
Yep.
and you
Straight
just
up, yeah.
chuck them in and fight on death, or just like let
Yeah.
them get hit. Because
Being
the
able to fight on
Canoptech
death is
Court doesn't
nice.
the Canoptech Court isn't the same as the Hypercrypt at getting behind your lines and killing those little infantry units.
Yeah,
So
it's
you will get
playing.
activations with the Repentia.
Yeah, it's playing much more of just like a straightforward move towards you list. The reactive move's quite strong there, I suppose.
But you don't
So,
care, like if they run away from you
hmm,
with your very cheap unit that's just
as
run
long
into the
as
middle. You almost want to just be left alone all game if possible.
hmm. Yeah, interesting. Sisters, they're in a good spot. Quite a
Mm.
cool army as well, so I'm really happy to see them there. Alrighty, man, moving right along. Tyranids. This is going straight in the winning RTTs category.
Oh,
I think so, at least, right? Like, I mean, Tyranids have gotten a buff in the sense that some of their bigger guys have come down in points, and
mhm.
that the meta is much less hostile to them. But I think there's a lot of raw power armies like I mean, Tyranids, I think, really struggle against Necrons, which is, I mean, immediately if you've got a bad matchup against Necrons, you are going to be struggling. I think, right?
I think so.
Catan are. I think my Nightbringer killed 800 points of a Tyranid army in one game in the weekend.
Oh no.
uh, yeah, he was problematic to say the least. And a lot of the stuff in Tyranids that got better were the big guys, right? In addition to that, when you have your cheap scoring chaff units, you know the Hypercrypt is going to be able to teleport immortals to just kill them all in one go and sit on objectives. So I think I've got a really tough game as Necrons. Death Guard I think would be really tough as well, and I think Space Marines is probably up there as well. Sisters would be really really tough, and then the Aldari builds I think probably line up really well into Tyranids as well. So
Yeah, they do.
yeah, really really tough to see them having a run that could beat all of these in like a 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 round tournament. But
Mm.
you know, in a 3 round tournament, yeah, you could jump a couple of matchups and play well.
Nice.
All right, Imperial Knights. Not a lot has changed. Uh,
Oh no, lower.
Lower?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's fair. Worse than demons, I think, for
Hmm.
sure.
I think so.
That's where we like to see him. I'm just kidding.
Beautiful, beautiful.
What do we crack on? Thousand Suns. Now they didn't get nerfed, but they didn't get buffed, did they?
They needed a buff. They really did. I think Thousand Suns really needed your Kabbalistic ritual points just to be available, even if you're in a transport, or maybe if you're in reserves as well. And that would have brought them into contention.
Hmm.
But as it is, I think they have a very tough time, Dave,
Yeah.
here in this meta.
I think I mean, CSM getting knocked a lot helps
Mhm.
them a lot, though, right? That was a super common matchup that was really uphill, right? So that's definitely good for them.
They've got
Are
a
they,
decent game into Canoptech Court.
Yeah, I think they actually, unironically, are actually reasonably good against Canoptic Corp for sure.
Mhm.
You know, you got the 12-inch range that can get around the lone op and doesn't trigger the reactor move. And Canoptic wants to stand on objectives, you know, and then you just re-roll against them. You got double Doom Bolt for the Catan, which lines up really well. Astra, here's the problem with the T-Suns from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong. The type of build you want to do is either going to be good against Necrons, but bad against Astra and Space Marines, and maybe even Death Guard and then you don't get a build that goes both ways. So if you want to do a heavy Infernal Master build, then okay, that's one thing that's got a lot of output and will chew through Necrons. But you're going to be having a really big lack of lone op for against the shooting based armies.
Mhm.
So you know that, and then the problems with access to lone op in general with their army on cheap like Changeling, Blue Scribes, and stuff like that nerf as well. So they're in a tough spot. What do you think, Vic? Are they sitting somewhere? Are they better than Orcs?
I would put them. I think they're losing at local stores. No, as in, I think they're more powerful than some of the armies winning RTTs. But I
Yep.
think they are actually, in terms of description, they're losing at local stores.
Yep, for sure. I can totally see that. And once again, this is not, the best players playing the best, whatever. I'm sure you'll see a Thousand Sun specialist, might win a GT, right? But I think most commonly you'll definitely see them losing local store games.
Hmm.
The Goldies. Man,
Oh, the Goldie's got a buff.
Goldies, they got a buff, man. I guess they got a buff in part also because armies that are now popular, they're quite good against. They also got the Devastating Wounds buff, which is obviously really nice. Bit of a points decrease as well. And, we're going into a bit more of a fight and melee-orientated meta, I would think. And the Goldies kind of line up pretty well in that, don't they?
I think they line up pretty well into Necrons as well, to be honest. All of these things I'm saying, like, oh, sisters line up well into Necrons, and then you just look across and look at Astra Militarum, and you're like, oh, that'll keep them in check.
Yeah, I think Astra Militarum is obviously a great game into Custodes. Like I said before, my list was 2 Manticores and 3 Basilisks. So enjoy advancing at -2, charging at -2, and then taking AP 3 Manticores to the face. Each one's a dead guy. So yeah, in that case, they kind of struggle, right? But I think they're pretty powerful at the moment. I definitely think they're in the winning GTs category. And I think you will see them winning GTs, especially because I think the player base is going to be a little bit reinvigorated around Custodes. Primarily because, I remember when Custodes were popular around, Crusher Stampede time, for example, right? And I think I played the London Open GT. I think I played Custodes 5 rounds in a row.
They're so popular.
Really popular. Super easy army to get. They're really cheap. You've got easy access to 3D print them. And in addition to that, they take about 4 minutes to paint. You just spray them all gold, a little bit of red, dip wash the whole thing properly, and you've got an army that's effectively tabletop ready with some dry brushing, right? So they've got a big player base and historically have as well, so I can see that player base getting a little bit more invigorated. And I think people that used to play Custodes and probably jumped to something else because they were, they lost a lot, are probably eking to get back into them.
Sure,
I can see them winning GTs. I think they're better than Chaos Space Marines. They're a lot more consistent than these armies in the winning RTT category, I think, right?
Yeah, and I think it's yet to be seen if they're even stronger than that, to be honest.
Yeah. I could see them definitely outperforming to maybe
they could
right here, right?
Possibly, yeah. It'd be really interesting to see how far they go. They are a little bit one-dimensional.
Is it like this? Is that it?
Is that it? Maybe that looks a little bit better, doesn't it?
It's tough, right? Because you could see because I think Vic and I are both hesitant to put Craft Worlds a bit lower because we know that there are die-hard Craft World plans, right?
Yeah, and I think Craft World are gonna outperform, to be honest, because the player base always is fairly highly skilled. The ones who win tournaments, so
I think you're right, and I think the players that were playing your traditional lists that were a little bit less that were significantly different from the builds that are good now won't make that transition, I don't think, which will leave a smaller player base that can target the meta a bit better and actually do a bit better as well. Nice.
Tau.
You
know what? I'm going to put my case forward for Tau.
Okay.
I think Tau are very strong here.
Really?
I think so. I think the change to Riptides is massive. The points decrease there because you build your list through Riptides right from the start. The increase to Crisis Suits, I think, is brilliant as well because it'll stop people from taking Crisis Suits. And I think you can build a whole bunch of Tau commanders because they're so cheap. They're like 80, 90 points for 4 cyclic ion blasters hitting on 2s. They're wild. And a Crisis Suit, 3 Crisis Suits is 200 points. 1 commander is 80 points. I think you could do that, stay under the Bring It Down count, maybe give up Assassinate and you don't care about it. And then you play a very different kind of army that I think is stronger than the previous armies, to be honest.
Are we talking 40 breaches, 3 fishes, something like that?
Maybe. You don't necessarily need to go that deep into it. You probably run out of points at some point there.
Right.
But yeah, triple Riptide, maybe 4 commanders or 5 commanders.
I can certainly see playing a non-vehicle, mid board though, right? To keep your Bring It Down count super low. I like the case for them. I think they potentially line up. Like I think Tau are quite good into. Well, oh man, that's tough. Are Tau good into Necrons? Oh, it's tough, isn't it? Katana are obviously a pretty big problem, and the ability to teleport the Catan
Mhm.
early in the game close is quite threatening, isn't it?
I think I'm not sure what you need to add to the list to get the correct output profile for Catan, but I'm
Mm,
sure Tau have it somewhere.
yeah.
I
Maybe
mean,
just a
they
huge amount of volume.
yeah.
Mm,
I'm right in saying their only real reroll to wound is from the breaches, so it's probably
mhm.
leaning a bit more into breaches um,
I
in order to
think,
get through.
what about we put them at the top of winning RTTs?
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Do you
I
think it's
mean,
fair? I don't think they're, I don't think they're at the consistency of custodes, or they have the player base of, custodes, right? Or like craftwords, for example, if we take that route. And maybe the raw power isn't as good as, or the mission play isn't as good as Sisters, and it doesn't have the raw power of these four armies up here. So
I think you're right. You've kept me in check there.
that's what we do here. And then Vic putting Astra at second is just blowing smoke up my ass if I don't agree with them.
You know what? I'm going to make a case. Actually, you know what? Let's make the case now
Sure.
for Astra Militarum here because I think we've gone through a huge number of armies that could play Necrons but lose
Hmm.
to Astra Militarum.
Yeah.
And I'm quite convinced Astra Militarum should be above Necrons there.
And I appreciate what you mean, but if we're talking to the average viewer
Yeah,
going to prepare for a tournament, this one here would even sometimes be over here, wouldn't it? Really,
you're right. You're right.
or just not even on the board, really, wouldn't it? It's a bit of a weird one. I
They'll still
100%
shoot
agree.
you even if they're not on the board.
Yeah, 240-inch range, motherfucker. That's great. Gene Stealer Cult. I think Gene Stealer Cult are pretty interesting, actually.
Mm.
I you know they've kind of man. I played Alex McDougall at World Champs, and that was a stressful game. Uh, I was playing Eldari, which I think is one of the better matchups of a Gene Stealer Cult, but the army still has good fundamentals.
Mhm.
The problem is the player base has dropped off the cliff, and the really good players have options to a bunch of other factions that have
They do.
really dynamic player skill, elements to them, and don't suffer from the same things of like for example, if I was a really good player and I was like, and I'm a Gene Stealer Cult player, and I was looking at GSC, but I also liked one of these top six factions. Would I play GSC? Well, probably not, right? Because the inconsistency with it would, and the inconsistency in the administration to play it, I think, would just be too much to make the call that you would rather play one of these armies, right?
That's a very, very good point. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with GSC. But let's say there are good players on it,
Hmm.
right? Where is their power level? It's really hard to gauge.
It's tough, man. It's so weird because I could see them losing to Tyranids, right? I could see them losing to demons.
Right?
I could see them just losing to, I don't know, Tau or Chaos Space Marines or something. But I could see them beating. Would they beat Necrons? That's tough, isn't it? That's a tough call. I could see them beating Necrons, not 18 rates, but I could see them doing quite well. You got the Locust Destroyers that have 36 shots, which are, really, really good against them, unfortunately. And that's definitely. Okay, I can't see them beating Necrons. But neither Death Guard
They
nor
beat
Space
Eldar.
Marines. Yeah, they're good against Eldar. Custodes, I think they're still really good against, right? They're previously pretty good against them. The 3-inch drop. Demo bombs are still really good against Custodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Sisters, they have got a lot of output, so I could see that maybe being good, actually.
Yeah, maybe. But sisters are weird because they're so cheap for their durability.
Yeah, it's true, but if you just sit back and shoot your opponent with seismic cannons instead of trying to drop in an alpha strike your
Mm.
opponent with a lot of OC, yeah,
I think they're going to be at the bottom of winning RTTs, to be honest, or where you're about to put them losing local store.
I could see them here. I think
Mm.
on average, if you went and looked at the GSC performance results, I think if you were to go to the local store and you saw T-Suns, Demons, Gene Stealer Cult, and Imperial Knights, I think that they would probably be losing maybe the most out of. They're not as bad as Imperial Knights.
You're not picking them to win, are you?
No.
From there.
At an RTT, say your local store's having an RTT.
Just 4 players.
Yeah.
Yep.
4 players? 8 players in a 3 round. Gene Stealer Cult, would you pick that? No. Or if someone's got 5 big demons, you're like, yeah, that could maybe happen, right? Obviously if one of these factions was in there. Or, someone's got Drakari and is a really good player, and it, not that's not a fair assessment, but a really good Drakari list or just a big orc list, you think maybe, they'd probably take it, right? So it's a tough one to evaluate. I think there's still a lot to be said about GSC.
This list is looking incredible. I think this is the best tier list I've ever seen.
No bias. Now,
Oh, is
anime.
this it?
No. We've got two more.
No. But I've ordered my kitchen table. It's arrived.
No,
It's
no, no.
arrived.
I think
No.
Admech are actually. I think Admech are secretly not bad.
Okay.
I think. So Malik played Admech at Coventry recently. Malik Rubio, who's taught me kind of how to play Admech as well, really, and played it a lot. Won an LGT with it. He did really well at Coventry, actually. Now, I think that's probably a case of him being very good at the game and basically no one knowing what Admech does. But they're not bad. They've got some utility. I was talking to some people about this, trying to understand, and the Vanguards can reduce your OC to like OC 0. They can just get out. They got a lot of volume. They can play the primary mission game really quite reliably. But I think they would lose on average to everything in the top 7 category, and I think that they would struggle against a lot of this stuff. Are Admech better than Tyranids?
No.
Probably not. They're not better than Chaos Knights. Are they better than Demons? I don't think so. I think
they're better than Knights.
I think they're better than Knights. Yeah. Yes. But GSC, I think they're better than. Oh man, that's tough. Because then I just have Alex McDougall in the back of my mind whenever I think about GSC or Myson or someone. Yeah, I think that they will perform better than GSC on average with the win rate, although they will not win as many GTs or RTTs, that's safe to say about a couple of these different pairings.
Fair enough, yeah. The bottom ones are going to struggle a lot.
Now we've got one more.
Who's the last one?
We've got Leagues of Votan, which I forgot last time. And we've got World Eaters as well.
Oh, yes.
Let me just... Vic, you can add some context for here for a second. And,
for World Eaters and Leagues of Votan?
Yeah.
So I just start talking about World Eaters.
Go through it. I'm going to try and upload the image of it.
I think World Eaters are a weird one because in the previous meta, they went slightly under the radar at the start. And then all of a sudden... people started realizing that these guys are actually quite good, and all you need to do is just run forward in a straight line and then roughly just get your micro correct. The macro strategy was done for you.
Yeah.
I think very straightforward army, and a lot of people had a lot of fun playing that playstyle because you can't really go wrong, and you've accepted, if this doesn't work out, I lose the game. I don't care, whatever, let's go. Which is quite cool. But they did take a little bit of a hit here. A few points increases. A little nerf to one of their enhancements, which helped with their Blood of the God things.
Yep. And the Master of Execution's one that was always taken for the ignore modifiers. But
an army like World Eaters, which is a pure threat saturation army, you put your whole army in front of them, a chunk of it dies, and then the other chunk goes and wins you the game, suffers a lot from even the slightest drop in power level, because if they kill enough of your army that the other bit can't do enough and you just run out of steam, then you're going to lose a lot more games than the amount of nerfs would suggest.
Yes.
And I think World Eaters dip under that level now. Probably still an excellent player, will get great mileage out of them. Like Anthony probably will do really, really well with them. But I think they're going to have a lot less success across the board.
Yes, than they previously did. I agree to you to a large degree. What I would say is, though, they did take points increases, but a lot of other stuff took points increases kind of to the same level. And I don't think they were in like the top 5 before. What do you think about maybe putting them at the bottom of winning GTs? Is that too high for you?
That's way too high, I think.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are they...
I have them, like, in my opinion, I think Tau are better. I think Grey Knights are better. I even think Drukhari are better. I think Orcs are better. I don't think Tyranids are better.
Yes.
That would be Vic's position there.
Yeah, cool. I can get it. I think World Eaters have the potential to have a good run, though. You're playing a GT, you go first 5 games out of 5, or whenever you need to go. There's an element of that that can happen at winning a tournament as well. I think they have a good game into Necrons, though, which is an interesting position to be in, though, right? Because your final 2 games might be into Necrons at a tournament. Although, with the damage nerf on the enhancement, that's obviously quite a big blow.
Mm.
And Hypercrypt is a little bit different than many other builds. And a lot of some Necron builds play 3 Catan, which is the breakpoint for World Eaters that is quite hard to get over, to the point where you can just bully a World Eater's opponent. So I agree. I don't know if I'd say they're stronger than Grey Knights, though,
Yeah, I think Grey Knights are going to be surprising for people. I think they're going to be quite good.
Yeah.
I think they just slot into the meta, just except for Astra Militarm. I think they slot in beautifully.
Okay, interesting. I actually misspoke. I tricked you. I think they're stronger than Grey Knights. Well, I don't think Grey Knights are stronger than them, but we can rehash it afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Leagues of Votann.
I think whatever it is, I think Orcs should be just slightly above the World Eaters for a very similar kind of army,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Leagues of Votann.
Oh,
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
I don't know.
They didn't really live up to the potential of the pre-nerf. I didn't mean like that. I meant, at the previous iteration of the balanced data slate, they didn't really live up to their potential, did they?
No, and I think people found them a little bit clunky. Like they should be brilliant. They should be amazing. They're such a good transport army. I think they've taken a bit of a hit now. I think the Sagittar change is going to really cost them a lot of points in their army.
Mhm.
Are they better in this meta? I don't know if they're significantly better in this meta.
But let me make a counter argument. 10 Wraithguard and Incarn out of the meta now. That was a pretty big hurdle for them to overcome in a super popular matchup, wasn't it?
Yeah, so maybe they are better in this meta, but I think if they are, they're only marginally so. I think they fight in the middle against a lot of these factions, but I don't think they sit above most of this.
Yeah, do they sit above Necrons, for example? No, I don't really think so, right?
No
they
chance.
have quite a large footprint. Necrons are going to be able to get space on them. They do have some things that are nice, right? They have the ignore damage mods, which is nice, but
I think the question is, do they sit above Tau or Sisters?
oh, interesting. You're thinking they're that high. I think they're definitely better than Chaos Space Marines.
Oh,
to be honest with you.
That slots them in.
So, like, if we're taking your word on Tau, then right here, I think CSM is really hard. I think we've got CSM a little bit too hard. So let's go into it. This is all the factions, unless I've really missed something. We've just got a bunch of sub factions here. The top three, I think we're pretty happy with that, aren't we? And then the second rank, Custodes. I guess Death Guard, I think, are really consistent and have great army faction ability, and were already really good before then, and didn't get nerfed a whole lot, and have a pretty, they have even play. It's pretty hard to see when you go Death Guard on the Matrix. Am I really like pushing against this army? Can I push consistent wins against this army? Maybe if you're playing something like Astra, yeah, or if you're playing a weird Marine build, perhaps. But it's pretty hard to push huge differentials against them. So I think they're one of the most consistent armies in this whole Matrix here.
Yeah, I like it.
We've got Craft Worlds, which have a really high ceiling, and a player base that is probably going to be even, will be smaller now, but even more concentrated with diehard good players, I think, in it. So I think their ceiling and reach is really high. Custodes, I think, get the similar treatment to Death Guard in that they've got some good matchups into Necrons, and then they've got even play into, I think, their play is pretty even into Craft Worlds too, right? 2-up saves is going to be a problem for Craft Worlds, and good OC. And then the Dev Ruin change is really nice for them against Craft Worlds as well. But then, they're consistent, and their consistency also and player base, I think, will mean that you're probably going to see them winning some GTs, right? And then Sisters, I think, are the army that are like Craft Worlds to some degree, aren't they, Vic? But they have a high ceiling, but we're going to have to see whether or not they can have good runs through these consistent armies like Death Guard, Necrons, Custodes, for example, right?
Yeah, I think there's got to be some level of innovation for Sisters to stay up there. But we'll see how it ends up. But I do think they probably are in the right place in the tier list. I think it's the next section. There's something's not quite right there.
Okay, what jumps out at you?
So I think we've got Tau too high.
Okay. What do you think if we just consider these armies in the winning RTT? We're not going to swap anything else. What do you think is the best army in here?
Okay, it's 9 factions. All right. I like where Chaos Knights and Tyranids are.
Yes, I agree.
But then the rest is a jumble of it could be anywhere.
Yeah,
really.
Drukhari, I think
I
this is an
think
army that could jump up. I guess it's
yeah, I think it could be higher Drukhari, to be
yes.
honest. I would rate Drukhari above Leagues of Votan,
Okay.
personally.
I personally think Chaos Space Marine is going to be a little bit lower.
Mm,
I think I could see them like right here, for example.
yep.
I think they've now been nerfed to the point where they need to prove themselves as actually being a competent army again.
Hmm.
And I haven't really seen where that's going to be good. You know, the if you took, for example, the previous meta and you saw Abaddon and vehicles and Forge Fiends, you'd be like, "What is this junk?" um, so it's going to be tough to see that. I think Orcs are a little bit better than Grey Knights too, personally.
Go for it. Yep.
I think Grey Knights have got a little bit to prove it. If I've said that about CSM, I think it's probably fair to say that about Grey Knights too as
Mm,
well, right? And then Votan, we have a really good idea of the power level of Votan because it hasn't changed that much.
mhm.
And then Drukhari are going to be they've got a lot to prove as well, but we have got a decent enough understanding of their army rules and playstyle that we think it's going to line up reasonably well into the meta as well, right? And then I
Yep.
guess Tau being at the top,
I almost think that maybe Tau should be around the Votan level.
Drukhari first.
I think Drukhari probably are top of that tier.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I think
because at RTT level, you're playing against maybe slightly different things.
Yep. I can see at the RTT level as well, though, Riptide, Triptide being really good, right?
Mm, yeah.
Just move, shoot,
Just
have a really
exist, to be
direct, yeah,
honest.
have a really direct game plan. I think Tau are going to go a little bit under the radar. I'm kind of inspired. Might get some Tau.
That was very cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. Local store, we've got to have something in there. We can't just put everything in the winning RTT category, right? Obviously, all this stuff can win an RTT, right? The gap between all of these is pretty slim, and
Yeah, I
the gap.
agree.
I think the biggest gap here is probably between the winning super majors and the winning GTs, right? Like the gap between Necrons, Astra, and Space Marines, and then Death Guard at Craft Worlds, is there's actually a reasonable gap there.
Mhm.
And then I even think between Death Guard and Craft Worlds and Custodians and Sisters, there's a reasonable gap there as well, right?
Mhm.
So,
Maybe. I think that's still
interesting.
small. I do think there's a jump. I wonder what the gap between winning GTs and winning RTTs is.
Yeah,
I think that's notable as well.
I think it is. Yeah, like Sisters are definitely a more powerful army than Drukhari
Mhm.
and Tau, right?
Mhm.
And like, I think some of the, I guess, what's the personality of a winning RTT army, so to speak, right? Is it that it gets gate kept by everything above it, right? Drukhari. Are you really going to be beating Necrons? Are you really going to be beating Necrons, Death Guard, and Custodians if you play against them ever? Like, probably not for the most part, right?
Mhm.
You're definitely not beating Astra, that's for sure. Get
Oh,
it
poor
directed off the
Drukhari.
board. So I'm pretty happy with that. T Suns, do they deserve to be at the top? That's fair.
I
I could.
think so.
Should Chaos Knights be where T Suns are? I almost
Oh,
think.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, put both knights at the bottom.
I think that's fair,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah. I think Demons are maybe better than Chaos Knights as well.
Oh, I don't know actually, Dave. I think maybe this is the bit where we're going to anti Chaos Knight because
Okay.
I think it actually was better how it was.
With T Suns and Chaos Knights?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
probably correct.
Fair. I do like the linearity of Chaos Knights, right?
Yeah,
They've
it's
got a raw stat check element to them,
correct.
which is powerful. They don't need a lot of things to come together to make them work.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go ahead though. I'm going to put Chaos Demons above T
Oh,
Suns.
let's go.
Let's go. I think there's something in the big boy mash, and historically, Vic, the big boy monster mash has actually been not terrible at tournaments, right?
Mhm.
I think when we went to Alveo 2 years ago, back when Demons got souped in with T Suns, Nick Nanavani and I think Matt Morrisoli both did very well with like 4 greater Demons, right? And if we can get them maybe back to that place where they're pointed reasonably well, I think that archetype is not terrible.
Very interesting.
There we
Oh,
go.
this is such a good tier list. I'm really happy with where we've ended up with this.
Oh,
I think it's
okay,
going to give a bit of guidance to people as well on where
definitely.
we think the strengths of different armies are.
So
As-
I gotta say,
yeah.
segue. If you're making an 8-man team lineup,
Mhm.
is it the first 8 that we've got here? Because you could make a case for that, right? Like that's solid. Do you take and the only weak link I think there would be: do you take Drakari or do you take something else, right?
Yeah, I think you definitely take the top three. I think
Mm-hmm.
you take three out of the next section and you take two out of the next section, depending on your
Yeah,
composition.
get a
And I
little bit
think
of a
that
skew.
probably ends up as a very strong 8-man team.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
would
you
love
just
to
ignore
see.
the last section.
I would love to see like Tau or something in an 8-man team lineup, right? Like that'd be super fun to play with.
Yeah,
And then
I
orcs,
don't think you take the top seven. I think you probably take six out of the top seven. It's
yeah,
probably the correct level.
maybe. I could see Custodes needing a lot of babysitting and
Hmm.
actually kind of struggling into great players on these top armies. That's for sure. I could
Yeah,
see a lot of people having a lot of green matrices into Custodes actually.
yeah.
Nice. What is
Oof.
next question though? If you could pick one dark horse from the winning RTT and losing local store, what would it be?
Um, Only one. So for me, it's between Grey Knights and Tau. I think I'm
Okay.
going to go Grey Knights. I think Grey
Whoa,
Knights are going to overperform.
you're a real believer in these men.
I
I've never
am.
lost to this army.
I think you probably still will never lose to them, but I think they're very good for this meta.
Yeah, I can see people, the traditional orc players, looking at the points increase on some things and being like, "God damn it, why do we need to get nerfed?"
Mhm,
The easy answer, I think, is Drakari,
mhm,
but I think World Eaters are going to do a lot better than. If there was one army, I think World Eaters probably got the most potential way to do consistently. Still really good. I know they got points increases, but some of their big meta targets also got points increases. So I'm not sure if they've slipped relatively that much. I think the player base is probably still pretty passionate about the army.
mhm.
Cool lot of skulls, baby.
Uh, I played a little practice game with Eldari versus Drakari,
Yeah.
and Drakari just get absolutely shredded.
Right.
It's very rough,
Yeah.
but I have to say Drakari are incredibly fun to play.
Yeah.
Like the play style is so naturally fun that I can see some people jumping onto it just for the fun factor and getting some good results out of them. So
For sure. Alrighty, that's the Fireside / Ignite tier list. But I'm really happy. I think this one's really thorough. So that's been us for this episode. If you've been listening on the podcast, then it's great to have you here. This has been episode 44, 40K Fireside podcast.
yeah.
This is David and Vic signing off.
See you guys. Leave a comment because this is going to be a big discussion, I think, coming
Boom.
out of this one.
See you guys.
Bye.